on to staff reports. Item B, I, department head reports. Finance reports, on it.
We're good to see reports for Pierce One. July 2019 was created this year.
Yep. Comment from the public works. Public works is. Please. All right.
He got condemned too.
There he goes.
David, public works report. Glad you weren't condemned or behaved.
Mr. President, Board of Directors, we have my report for the month of September. I stand for some questions.
Seek public comments, questions. Yes, ma'am.
Is Duncan and the works now conserve water in the upper elevations? And are the generators in place?
Yes, on your first question, and after the meeting tomorrow morning, we'll give you one seven small things that happen in that thing. We'll probably, should be on the radar. Other areas. Assess the situation. Link,
Is having to do with that area? You only have 3 generations. Out.
We do have a plan that I was familiarizing myself, taxable status, I had to resubmit, division officially felt like we get some more information. I went ahead and kind of elaborated on what I originally sent them, and we're in talks with a couple other engineering firms to provide information with respect to taxable. And when I talked about this the other day, and I'm still hopeful that we can get this in.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. President, our opportunity ends in what, April or,
Yeah.
in November to April or something?
Well, and kind of technically, that depends too on the mitigation study. But yeah, you.
Yeah.
A little more.
Thank you.
Any public comments? More comments. Dave?
Yeah, we closed with that, we were supposed to about 3 weeks. It's end of October 1st. The other thing that would help these, I might just add, that would help expedite these, if we had our inline machine.
Skyline Athletics.
We had our inline machine maybe, which would be hydro excavation, so Some of the smaller ones, we have to pick them by hand.
I like the report generally, and just kind of like to see captions on some of the pictures, so it gives us some sort of idea as to where this is taking place. I mean, it's good news that it's being done at all, but that's all I'd like to see. Is, where is this? And if it's not clear, what is it?
Just a comment, Dave. I want to thank you for the efforts of you coordinating all of these departments, and it's actually being run under the construction methods, and it's much more efficient, and we see that, and I just want to acknowledge that to you. Thank you.
So now let's move on to number 3, public safety report. Chief.
Mr. President,
Is-
there's nothing remarkable. Staff meetings, and last month, taking a position. Other than that, the, front steps.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Encouraging people to we have to meet her exactly here at 2:30. Catch me at the Anybody that might need power tonight, we're the way to get out of here. I just. Carries 2 minutes. Understand why. Shit.
Really the only area that would be accessible unless you were able to personal stuff. Whether this room, the lobby. All right, move to public comments or questions?
I was talking to Pete
nothing that I can say publicly.
Yes, Chief. With respect to Southern California Edison, I mean, this is a new procedure that they have enacted. This is the first time here in Bear Valley. So this is probably going to continue on in the times when we have Santa Anas, although this is not a Santa Ana that we're experiencing now. So I'm a little bit perplexed why they chose that. But anyway, my question is we got what, 3,800 lots, and I don't know, 6,000, 8,000, 9,000 people here. Everybody has refrigerators, freezers, and this long extended time, there's going to be food perishing and what have you, because we don't have access to items that would prolong those units, such as dry ice. So if this is going to go on forever, we need to be thinking about how we plan for the future. And this is just a comment. This is not for you to answer, but just a comment that how does our residents access things like dry ice if this is going to continue because of high winds and so-called Santa Ana winds? So that's just a comment that maybe Eddie needs to invest in a big unit with dry ice and be able to be prepared. We can talk to Eddie about that. Anyway, just a comment. Have you had any conversations with Edison about future, what their intentions are?
I'm really running through them because we have
Right.
the best contact.
Yeah.
Nothing past this. All of that turned back on.
Right, and that's because the system exceeds the useful life of the units, which is over 30 years. And that's why Edison is in here now, replacing things, because they have cabling 50 years old. That's 20 years past its life, and we just experienced an outage just this past week with 50-year-old cable. So that's why. Okay.
Right? And it just went out maybe half hour.
Oh,
I think it went out earlier. Recent.
which route is it?
Yeah.
Just,
We had 15 minutes. What happened. We didn't know how to do that. We had house no information. Power went out. I think it's so the power's out.
Everybody knows that.
We knew something Saturday morning.
sure. Thank you, Kristen.
Oh, I just remind everybody that while the power's out, have Wi-Fi or
Okay.
And, I do have a comment, and maybe it's not necessarily you, I'm a little perplexed. We have an emergency evacuation put in place. The Whiting Center is the place that we're supposed to be housed at. Why don't we have some backup generation? Why are we waiting until, again, it's not, that you, why aren't we prepared, like today, this came in somewhere midday, plenty of time to have CERT come out with generators and things, you know, and hook up the Whiting Center, or what is the plan, right? If that is our evacuation point or emergency stopping point, why aren't we prepared? I'm, you know, and people would know to go to the Whiting Center, because we've talked about it in previous meetings. And then they go to a candle or flashlights.
The Whiting Center.
Come up.
Whiting Center is not designated as the evacuation center by the Red Cross. They have the church as the evacuation center. The reason is the Whiting Center is an earthquake. Safe. Actually, the engineering failed on it. Back a couple years.
And so that even makes me more perplexed of where do I go,
Yeah.
right? So,
Because all of the signs and everything are in our Red Cross trailer that's out back, and they all go up at the church.
okay, I'm not very crystal clear to me. Yeah, granted, I've only lived here a little less than 7 years. But my understanding was the Whiting Center, right? So if that is not the case, and it's someplace else, maybe we should have some type of communication on that, exactly what has to happen. And then wherever that place of emergency is, that we're actually fully prepared and to accept people. I don't have the comfort zone about protecting your 7,000 residents. Whole situation. It is what you're calling.
Evacuation, I know, evacuation. It doesn't really take into account.
Right.
Taking out fires, floods, other weather. I did say that there's a generator that's behind it, it's so, you know, there, it just didn't evacuate. It would get it from the light. I haven't come on our, this will be one of the longest ones in the county. Yesterday. Over. And then,
Right? Same thing with the earthquake.
No, I'm
That's-
making excuses.
Yes.
yeah, that's
Good. I'd like to just,
Does the church have an emergency generator? Yes. Does the church serve?
church.
Church.
So, well, no better time than the present to actually have a plan. Can we bring that back with what the plan is? That's important to us. So we can actually share it and on that.
Honestly,
Okay. Thank you, Chief. I'll move to General Counsel, Davis.
thank you, Mr. President. I have two items related to water instead of power. Last week, the Tehachapi Cummings County Water District held a stakeholders meeting regarding the proposal to establish a new safe yield for the Cummings Basin and to impose basically allocations on different users in the valley. Director Barron attended in person. I attended by phone. It was really kind of a more of an introductory meeting. They didn't really break any new ground. There's no change. They're just trying to inform people and because they had sent out the proposed stipulated judgment to people. That got a lot of the smaller residents who are overlying owners out there, I think, interested. It was a helpful meeting, but again, nothing new. I did discuss with their counsel, though, our lingering concerns that we had regarding the judgment. They answered my questions, so I feel comfortable that our interests are protected. There were some ambiguities about our rights as an overlying owner out there because of some of the language they used, but they provided me satisfactory assurances. So they would like us to sign the stipulated judgment, so we will agendize that for the next board meeting. I think it would be useful for them. They obviously have a lot of work to do to get further support. I think they're going to have a tough row to hoe with the big ag users, particularly Grimway, who don't want to see themselves restricted, but are also the ones causing the problems out there. Our interests are generally protected because of our water banking, the location of our wells, and the fact that they're recharge basins. But I think it would be good for us to get in front of this and to, in addition, signing on, perhaps do a resolution of support to get some of the other public so they can start building, some groundswell on that. So we'll bring that back for the next meeting. The other two is, I don't know if this will be the next meeting, but sometime in the future, state law has changed regarding procedures for termination of water service. There was a bill passed that goes into effect early next year, so we're going to have to adopt our code. It basically is intended to protect really lower income people from the harsh effects of a termination of service. So it extends the time periods. It provides some additional not exemptions, but requirements that we work with people who are at certain poverty levels by providing amortization periods to extend their payments and things like that. So we're going to have to do a handful of amendments. I'll bring forward some drafts, and maybe you run it through your Utilities Committee before we bring it to the board for adoption as a ordinance amendment.
Now,
Yes.
what constitutes poverty level?
200% of the federal poverty guidelines. And I actually looked that up because I didn't know what that was. And it's 16,000. So I guess it would be somewhere income under 32,000. But we'll confirm that. It just said federal poverty guidelines in the statute.
Well, it could affect some retirees that were on exclusively.
It could give them additional protections. It also lists other things like CalFed, I think food stamp programs and things like that. They get some special protections.
No, I'm good.
Davis, to general managers.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. First item would be just an update as staff is continuing to work on the sewer rate study and look to bring that hopefully to you at your next meeting so we might begin the Prop 218 process. I envision using the same approach with some outreach through public meetings, opportunities for Q&A and explaining what it will look like. So that is continuing to go. I did attend the Kern County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan meeting, which involves all of the public agencies in Kern County. Under the umbrella for this plan, we all should be going through the process of identifying our risks: earthquakes, fires, floods, chemical explosions, whatever the kinds of things might be that pose a risk to us, and then going through a process of identifying mitigations for it. So we most likely will continue to have fire threats as one of our top items, I expect, and then we will go about identifying mitigations to that, some of which might be obvious, i.e. remove the fuel, like we're planning to do with the fire grant to get rid of the logs. But some other ones may be, as an example, what germane for our discussion tonight is, well, if we need fire suppression, we need to ensure that we have auxiliary power for the pumps to keep the water moving up the mountains. So perhaps there's an opportunity in all of this for us to get some funding for those kinds of purchases that serve in emergency situations like this, but particularly for water if fire suppression becomes an interest. So we'll be beginning to engage through our committees, our board, with our public to kind of explain what's going on, how we can process through, and then ultimately come to you with, you know, here's the plan, so that it would fit into the overall, which is due sometime in 2020. So very interesting, though, about this process, because there were at least 100 people in that EOC in Bakersfield for this meeting. And so it was a good one for me to attend. Tim's been doing it heretofore for the last 8 months, 9 months, whatever it's been. So that's on the forefront. And lastly, I did attend the CSDA conference with Director Hahn. Thank you, and picked up some other things too. One of which was almost immediately valuable, which I can't remember it's the uniform contracting code. Yes, and so a very exciting seminar. But one of our little checks we found, you know, we need to have filed our resolution, and it didn't show on their records that we had done that. So we were able to go back and confirm and submit and cross that T with them, so we would be compliant. So you know, potentially we may not have been had we gone down on some of the projects that we have in front of us. So immediate value, I think, for us there. But thank you again for letting me attend. And that's it for my report.
No.
Thank you. All right, move to 13 future agenda items. What I have here is disaster preparedness advisory council appointment, public hearing and adoption of new resolution, annual employee benefits renewal.
Well, if we can, let's try to do that. But I'm not sure if, and again, I try to be giving our folks as much time as is allowable to do that one. I'm not sure it's as urgent as perhaps some of the others.
We can't bring it back and we're going to bring it back in December.
Yeah, just we need to get out there and get some other policies and do some comparisons and things. I think is part of the process.
Anything else? Okay, the next regular. Yes, ma'am. Jeff, come up. And you are?
I'm in.
I am.
Somebody needs
I'm not sure yet what the plans that Chief Melanson had talked about. Yeah, so potentially there's a number of people that might be in that kind of situation. I'm not quite sure what the idea was to open it up and how accommodating it might be for how many people. So I'm at a loss, Andy, right now too to give you a specific answer. Yeah, yeah.
Would that be a communication that so be,
I think that'd be an excellent one. Yeah. I think for us to get out to as many people as possible, and then if we're going to do something, we need to put it on social media as well. I'm not quite sure what our capabilities are here yet.
But just real quick, I spoke with a gentleman this afternoon that requires power for his medical equipment, and he called me to ask what should he do, and I recommended that he go to a town where he knows there's going to be power, so he can have the power for his medical items. Because what we heard is we probably wouldn't have power restored till sometime on Saturday, and I didn't want him to sit around waiting for it to come on and it not come on, and then it becomes very, very severe. So
Yeah.
he packed up and went to Lancaster. So this afternoon's for a couple of days.
Okay. First, I want to thank the public for attending today. The next regular scheduled meeting of the board of directors is November 15th. This year, move to motion the adjournment at 7. Motion in the second. Aye.
Jay, who was those three guys?